Hello everybody, welcome back for your next section of notes. Today's topic is going to be volume of prisms and cylinders. So we're moving into that next section of the chapter that involves volume. So far we've looked at area, we've looked at surface area, and now we are starting on volume. So a little bit of refresher. Volume is going to be the measure of the space that a figure occupies. And anytime you solve for volume, you are going to be using cubic units. So it's raised to that third power. Today's first half, or first examples, may be very familiar to you in how to do volume, but we're also just adding a couple more equations to build onto our cheat sheet. So make sure you guys are continuously adding those and updating that list, because that will be due coming up here soon. All right, our first half of finding volume for rectangular prisms or cubes. And this is the formula y'all most likely have used in the past. When you're trying to find the volume of a rectangular prism or a cube, you are going to multiply length times width times height. So here in this example, I'm trying to find the volume of a rectangular prism. I'm going to multiply. Volume is going to be equal to 9 times 17 times 24 centimeters. Plug that into my handy dandy calculator. And my volume is going to be 3,672 centimeters cubed. Okay. If you notice, looking at our equation for volume, when we multiply length times width times height, theoretically, we are finding the area of a face and then multiplying that area by its height. And that's the same basic foundation of solving for area. Because if I make cross sections across this entire figure, it will have the same basic face. It's the same face stacked up on top of each other. So if I can find the area of my base, I can find volume by multiplying by the height to figure out how many faces are within there. So let's see that adapted. So our basic formula, if we didn't want to measure or memorize length times width times height, for any prism, our basic formula is going to be V is equal to capital B times H, or the area of the base times height. So here I have a triangular prism. I'm going to find the area of my base, my triangle, and multiply it by my height. So my height is going to be 5 feet. And I need to find what my big B is, my area. Well, area of a triangle is equal to 1/2 times base, which is going to be my 12 feet, times height, the height of my triangle, which is 7.3. 1/2 times 12 reduces down to 6. So my area of that triangle is going to be 7.3 times 6, which gives me an answer of 43.8 feet. Now, if the question was just asking me for this area, let's say the area of my base, what would my units be? Well, it's area, so my units would be feet squared. All right? Okay, let's think about this a step further. When I come here and plug into my volume equation, I'm going to multiply by this area, so 43.8 feet squared, multiply that by my height of my prism, which would be 5 feet. All right, so I'm going to take 43.8 times 5 feet, and that gives me 219. Now, if I look back at my units in my equation, I have feet squared multiplied by feet. Remember, when you multiply exponents, you add your exponents. So 2 plus 1 is 3. So that's why when we do volume, or we solve for volume, our units are cubed. So my final answer is 219 feet cubed. So when you're using prisms, remember, find my area of my base, and then I multiply by my height. All right, let's look at another example. Here, I'm trying to find the volume of this prism. All right, I have a trapezoidal prism. So I'm going to find the area of my base and multiply by my height. All right, here is my basic base. All right, to find the area of a trapezoid, I need to multiply 1/2 times my height, so the height between my bases, which would be 17.9, multiplied by the length of my bases. So here is my first base of 14. I'm going to add that by the base, this base right here. Well, I don't have that measure right now, but if I can pick up the measure from the picture. If you notice, I mean, ignore my drawing skills, but this measure right here is going to be the same measure as our 36 meters. Because if this is my main face, my face is identically back here. Identical back here. Okay? Lord knows I'm not an artist. So these two segments are congruent. Because volume is when you find the area of that face and you multiply it by that height, because that face is kind of stacked up on each other to create this prism. All right, let me shift back to blue. All right, so it's going to be 14 plus the length of my bottom base, which would be 36. All right, 14 plus 36, is that 50? There we go. Sometimes I feel like I'm getting slow with my math skills through digital learning. All right, so 50 times 17.9 gives me 895, divided by 2 gives me an volume. Oh, wait, no. Area, area of my trapezoid of 447.5 meters squared. That gives me my area. Now I need to find for my volume, I need to take that measure of 447.5 and multiply that by my height, which is going to be 25. So times 25, giving me a final answer of, woo, ba-ba-boom. Okay, 11,187.5 meters cubed. All right, let's look at our last problem, which is going to be finding the volume of a cylinder. When I find the volume of a cylinder, I'm following that same basic property of volume where I find the area of my base and I multiply by my height. Think of the cylinder as multiple circles stacked up on top of each other. So in order to find my capital B, I'm going to have my basic volume formula of pi times r squared, and then I multiply by that height. So here, I'm going to take pi times 18 squared times 15. So I'm going to put that in parentheses. All right, 18 squared is going to be 324 times 15 gives me an answer of 4,860 pi. If you're my math lab is finicky sometimes and asks for the answer in pi. If it did so, we would stop here. However, I like going down to a decimal point so we know how to deal with pi as well as attach our units. So 4,860 times second caret to give me my pi, which will give me an answer of 15,268.14 inches cubed. That's my final answer. I also want to take this moment real quick to review. I know in past my math lab, when it asks to have your answer in pi, you might have simplified it down to have 2 pi plus, let's just say 20 pi. In order to simplify that down into one answer, you want to think of the pi's as a variable. So let's say I had 2x plus 20x. What would we do? Well, we keep our variable the same and we add our coefficients. So my answer would be 22 pi. All right, little algebra review. Okay, well, that's all I have for you today. If you have any questions, please let me know, guys. Make sure you're updating your